Hey guys, I'm Chris,
And I'm Mike.
and welcome back to this week's No Limits, the Thriller Podcast. How you doing today, Mike?
I'm great. Before we introduce a special guest who's got some news for us today, just want to let you know this episode and all our episodes are brought to you by the Thriller Pod Book Club. So if you want to help support the podcast, be the reason we can make more podcasts, head on over to thrillerpod.com, click the book club tab, and join the crew. We got a group chat going on all the time with Chris and I, and we're always talking books year round. So check that out. If you like what's coming to you on the pod, you can also have it 24/7 in the group chat. Someone we'd love to have in that group chat, because we're always talking to him, he's always involved with the Thriller podcast, is Tyler Boer. Ty, welcome back to talk Cry Havoc. But first, you've got some big news for us.
Yeah, we got a couple of good things. In September, went to Montana for a little vacation with the girlfriend and got engaged.
Nice.
But some other bigger news we can get to later on business front, and then some future novel stuff that you guys might find exciting. So
Quick
I was-
pivot.
I was wondering
Yes.
if you were going to say the
Quick.
Jack Carr book coming out later
First.
in 2026 was the
No.
big news. I meant the engagement.
yeah, no, the engagement is the big news. So yeah, we went to Bozeman area and did some hiking and had a good week together. So it was a good time.
A James Reese proposal.
There you go. Yeah, exactly.
No, that would have been Kalispell probably. up north.
true. Up towards Glacier.
Yeah, next trip.
Beautiful area.
Love
Did
it.
that 2 summers ago. Great area.
Yeah, fantastic.
Well, this book does not take place in Montana.
No, very far away from Montana.
Yeah, I think, what did you guys think of the setting? I think for the listeners, I think we're probably going to riff a bit. I know the last big review you guys did in depth with Terminal Vengeance, you guys went over the typical topics and stuff, so we can kind of bounce around if you want or stay in order. But I listened and I know what you guys liked and disliked, and I'm on the same page with you guys for a bit of it. I think none of the books in the series are duds, but there's definitely some high points and lower points. Even the ones that we think like, hey, Jack's done better, they're still fantastic books. Like, this is still probably in my top 3 reads of the year. My top read of the year is probably Hail Mary, which I finished Sunday. So
Nice.
I know we can chat about that, maybe feather some of that in as well. But what did you guys think? Since this isn't set in Montana, what did you guys think of this setting? Maybe a little more detailed than the previous thoughts on it, now that you've had some time to think about it.
Yeah, I mean, you can't do it better. It's setting both physically, but also in time with 1968. Just, you felt transported. I think we said that on the pod with Terminal Vengeance. We must have given it 5 out of 5. I mean, I can't see how I wouldn't have. That was the shining part about the book to me. Was I felt like I was in the jungles. I could taste it, and I still say, now that we've done the year in review and the wrap up, best action sequence I've read this year, and even in a long time, is the escape out of the camp.
Yeah, the POW camp escape is awesome. That's actually, I think, my highlight of the book.
Completely.
I think it has so much riding on it, and it's like the moment. I have a couple of notes, and one of the things is like you had talked about British espionage books, and it does have a lot of those elements in the slower parts where there's some character and background building, I guess, for future events. And I know you guys had called it some callbacks, but actually they're technically call forwards. But but
Sure.
the other thing, the other vibes I got from this was noir. Like the bad guys,
sure.
the bad guys win a lot in this novel, which is I think a good thing. We don't have any bad guys here that think that they're the good guys, which sometimes makes for a better novel. We had a couple of those in the past. I think that makes the bad guys a little more interesting, where they're just a bit misguided on their route to how they're trying to get to their end result. Yeah, I thought the setting was fantastic, but the camp escape is definitely a highlight for me, especially when he gets back and everybody can't believe how he got back, where he came from and everything, and they're kind of dumbfounded over it. And another topic real quick, and now that you've had some time to think about it, what do you think of Jack including some actual real MACV-SOG guys listed in the in like the big montage prep scene where they're all getting on on the helos and stuff. And I was curious because in Savage Son, the closest he's come to this in Savage Son, the team that drops onto the island with them are fictional people, but they're based on real guys that are, some are in the public eye, some aren't. Like they talk about the one character who has a dog and he makes the half-faced Blades Skinner. Well, in real life, that's Andrew Arabito, but I don't think that character's name is Andrew Arabito in the book. I think I have to go back and double check, but he drops in some real, I guess, features of his friends as some characters. But this is the first time where like you hear people who were actually there listed as like attending a mission, which was, I thought was neat.
I think when you go historical like this, it's much easier to do that versus a lot of times when people are writing for like the near past and they're basing it on a character, you know, they maybe not want to say someone's name, you know, just for security reasons, personal reasons, that kind of stuff, instead of just basing on an essence of a character. But, you know, when you have someone who's, you know, either gone or, you know, it's so far in the past, and it makes it much easier to be able to pull that trigger. For me, like this book, you know, what I wanted out of this book, I think I got mostly. You know, we had been building up to this moment, right, of wanting to know more and more about his father, more and more about his past, and to be taken back and have it, you know, executed like he did. I think, you know, as a whole, I'd say, yeah, it did good. Like it did what it was supposed to do. Like,
Yeah.
were there parts that I, you know, thought could have been polished? Sure. Did it have some of the best action sequences that I've read this year, if not like in the Jack Carr universe? Yeah. You know, so to me, I think like what we, you know, not to rehash what we said before, but this is a pretty, you know, middle of the road Jack Carr book, but it has like its highlights, and it's, for me, ultimately, I think it set out to do what it needed to do. But would you guys agree with that?
I agree with you. I feel like when it comes to like, did you get what you wanted out of it? There's some things I still like want to see. And so where I was going with this is I think after seeing Dark Wolf and this book, you can kind of tell that Jack kind of knows what he has, and he's starting to write stuff in a way where he's leaving the door very, very wide open for future exploration. So if this was the only Tom Reece novel we would ever get, I'd be disappointed. But he leaves the door so open, like he's just getting into the CIA. Like there's a couple things that are retconned, which I'm typically not a huge fan of, but they don't bother me because it was done for a reason to make it kind of more entertaining. Getting the watch was retconned. And even though we don't see it, I mean, Tom hands down a shotgun that he supposedly used in Mac v. Sagan. I don't really think he ever uses that in the novel at all. But the how he gets the watch is definitely retcon. I mean, Mike, Jack and I were talking about that a little bit. He brought that up, that he wanted to make it more exciting, which I thought was interesting because it's really not the biggest deal, but it creates such a cool thing in like chapter 10. And so I was going to see what you guys thought of the pacing. I know there was something I noticed that in this book that I didn't notice in any other book, which is about every 10th chapter, there's something really exciting or pivoting that changes the direction of the story. So in chapter 10, he gets the watch. So that's like super exciting, especially for past readers. Then like in chapter 20 or 21, something else happens. Then 30, 29, 30 or 31, something else happens. Where like, I think like in the 30s or chapter 40, maybe he gets shot in the head. And it's like, always like you think you're on this path for like 9 chapters and bam, it's like a right turn, then bam, a left turn. And it's just, it was just something I noticed because I usually keep track and take notes when I'm reading on like something I'm interested in, so I can go back and refer to it if I need to. Because that was something I learned in the first couple books. I want to go back and read a couple specific parts, and I'm like, where the hell are these damn parts? I can't find them. So now I take some notes on stuff I think's cool. So I noticed that like every 10th chapter was like a bigger, exciting moment. In my opinion, did you guys happen to notice that or feel that? Like, okay, we kind of need a little bit of action, and bam, you get it. And then, okay, 9 chapters in, we need a little bit of something, bam, you get it. Anything like that on your end?
I think I would say I was where you were. I knew there were bangers of scenes that I wanted to reread, but the book was just too long. I didn't want to reread the whole thing right away. So I would have liked to read the Delta scene, but I skipped through a bunch of chapters and I couldn't find that exact part. And then I really wanted to see Eldridge. I was like, was he acting like a wuss on that mission where they had that kind of shootout in the street where they were in the truck and the convoy? I wanted to go back and see how he acted during that, looking back, knowing who he was. And then there were a few others, and I just couldn't find them exactly because it got kind of lost in the muck. If I knew that little trick that you found, that could have helped. But it does indicate a problem that I think some readers had. I know for some of our patrons, particularly in the group chat, were like, man, the first third is just tough to get through. All the introductions, all the different people in all the different places. But I appreciate it more because having reread most of the book, skipping around, even those scenes which seemed slower when I was first reading them, and I was like, can we just go back to the jungles? Can we get back on the ground with Tom and Quinn? What happened to Quinn? I want to know. Well, when I went back and spent some time with, okay, Dvornikov, we're learning who he is and what kind of playboy he is and who he's involved with. And we have the conversations with the two Russian guys, Lavrenenko and his underling, who turns out to be the traitor, the spy. You know, I appreciate a little more of that slow burn buildup of all these characters. But that wasn't enough to make up for my initial reread being a little difficult to get into and a little hard to get into. Now, you're right. The action, it hits you right when you need it. You know, something blows up. There's an explosion. We cut back to him dangling from the chopper, right? Cutting himself loose. It was like, I wanted to get back to that right away after the first opening couple chapters were so awesome. So I think I appreciate the moves being made, laying out the chessboard. I appreciate that a lot more in light of the ending and the final third. But getting through it on initial reread was a little tough. So I still can't say the pacing is perfect, but I appreciate a lot more the moves that were being made having gone back.
Yeah. I think more than some other novel series, I think these novels really feel like a film. Every chapter change is like a scene change, where I feel like this has a first, second, and third act quite a bit more than some other novels too. So like the third act is all like the redemption arc and trying to basically avenge Quinn and everything. And, you know, he has like that, almost like that call to adventure with the CIA, which is towards the beginning in the first act. Then the second act is like him kind of getting the shit kicked out of him and losing, and Quinn getting killed and going from there. But I was just curious if you guys notice those things in these more than other novels, because you guys read way more thrillers than I do. So I was curious, do you notice that in the same way in some other series? I mean, I've read some series, but not into it like these ones.
You know, I have seen a progression and sort of change in tone or change in like style a little bit with Jack, right? Where he was in Terminal List and you know,
True Believer.
There we go. To where he is now is, you know, the essence is still there, but I would say it's very different. I don't know if it's like any sort of influence coming from, you know, being a producer and then, you know, co-show running this second series and, you know, getting more involved in all that, to, you know, we know about like the arc of, you know, the first 3 books and then, you know, having to follow that up with the next 3. And so I think ultimately, like authors, we've seen it with Brad, we've seen it with Vince, like their styles do subtly change, you know, whether or not it's emphasizing one or more topics, whether or not it's changing with the pacing. You know, we've seen authors that go from writing 600-page, 700-page epics to now, you know, they're barely cracking like the 300-page mark and having it be like a, you know, a fast pace. This one, I feel like, you know, I didn't quite notice what you were saying in terms of, but now that you're saying it, I definitely realize that. And having like, all right, go plot along and then boom, you know, like this sort of like heartbeat of a spike. I feel like maybe that's almost why for me the pacing didn't quite work, because, you know, I like it to be a little bit more elevated like throughout, you know, like like or at least hit me like every, you know, more often than 10 chapters, I guess.
I felt like the 10 chapter of like big event pace was a little bit unique and different. I didn't really notice that anywhere else, but I can't have the pedal to the metal all the time. There needs to be some slowness, and the hard to get through first third, the first act of this, I think reminded me of how much I thought the first half of True Believer was hard to get through. And now, after rereading and listening and really diving deeper into this story over all of these books, I really hold like that slow bit of True Believer like above even some of the action scenes, because there's nothing else quite like it that's
Sure.
like peaceful, and him like finding purpose and things like that. And so I'm curious if like a year from now we'll look back on the slow bits of this and be like, you know what, that wasn't that bad. And you know, you kind of enjoy him like being a bodyguard and getting to like fall in love with this, you know, person he's trying to protect, and she ends up betraying him. You know, I think some of that stuff maybe a year from now might sit better with us, but I agree that like it's just like something, it doesn't feel off, but it didn't feel natural.
I think though that is also a progression, almost the opposite, Chris, of what you said, where we've seen some other series be under the publishing gun, book a year, make it shorter, attention spans, what sells, nonstop action, keep it gripping throughout. But I think with Jack Carr, it's been a progression kind of in the opposite way of
Yeah.
The Terminalist, I think of as a very tight, action-packed book,
Sure.
nonstop adrenaline rush. And then over time, I mean, you definitely saw with the fourth book, the fifth book, you saw him almost willing to slow down, willing to dig into the psychology a bit more of the characters, draw bigger connections between their network of people. And that takes time to develop on page. And I feel like book after book, he's just leaned into, I'm okay if it's longer. I'm okay if it slows down a bit, because he wants to world build. Combine that with this book specifically being an espionage novel. One of the reasons I ended up appreciating the pacing so much more is I could look back and see this as a spy versus spy. I wasn't quite getting that, let's say, like with the opera talk, right? Lavernenko and these guys, opera's coming up a bunch, Penkovsky, and then the exchange, right? I was like, okay, this is like an actual they're trading secrets and spycraft in the theater. So I'm like, okay, the opera's making sense now. And then that's how he gets caught and burned in the end. If you want that payoff of that reveal, when his boss tells him, you know, I no longer have a deputy, he's going to take it over after me. It's like, what are you talking about? Well, it's because I caught you red-handed. If you want that reveal, you needed to put in the time. You needed the slow burn of who the characters were and what they were doing. Same thing with like Lan Trifang and all the other spies, right? The women and the meats and the brick, right? She has to turn the brick upside down, and there's a dead drop here and there. You can't cheapen that. You can't shorten that and have a dead drop out of the blue by a character you didn't establish them taking all these other precautions. You can't just have them go to a meet. You can't have a guy just come over, you know, for whatever. You have to slowly work and build that trust. A dead drop, you have to be on top of it. You have to watch it. It has to be monitored. So when I went back and I could realize how the game was being played, the stakes felt so much higher. As it was developing, though, I just don't know why I didn't get into it the first time. But also the reason, though, I think the pacing works better for me is it was a decision to make this an espionage novel. And I thought that was a smart play.
Yeah, I agree. I think some of the dead drop stuff, you know, it doesn't, I didn't think it felt like it dragged or anything like that. It's like, okay, let's get back to the jungle side of things.
But I couldn't place it.
Yeah, I agree. It like I said, it didn't feel out of place or like wrong. It just didn't feel smooth, in my opinion. Some of the stuff, like there's a smoothness to a couple of his novels that like you could just glide right through that thing and eat it up in a weekend. But
yeah, I don't think that's this book.
And that's
I agree.
right?
This is choppy and hard to digest occasionally. So,
and maybe that's what it was like in 1968, right? Like maybe that was the confusion of the times.
But to me, right, he had to have been thinking about this novel for a long time. And I don't know, like, I just feel like it could have been a little more tight, like with the amount of time that he had to actually produce this novel. And like,
yeah, plus extending the deadline and everything.
Yeah, like, and I like this idea of switching back and forth between the two if we get that, because then, you know, that allows some breathing room for each of the stories, to develop and not have to like constantly come up with this, I have to come up with a new idea for my main character.
I have a feeling he's going to have some more co-writers on some stuff like he did with Targeted. I know that series he's supposed to do all the time with that other author that he did that with. And so I don't know what the next topic is for Targeted, but we see what we're going to talk about later on has a co-author and everything. So I think being able to spit out more content that is in his world is being more appealing to him. So I'm hoping that doesn't dilute the quality.
The nonfiction though takes a while. Like I cannot expect a Targeted book every year or two.
No,
that's
every.
I wouldn't want it.
He said every 2 years, I think, for that series.
Even
so we may
that,
get one next year.
I mean, just look at like a David McCullough book or any of these like big, like Ron Chernow, like anyone doing these like big historical books. You're not cranking those out every 2 years. Like to write an Alexander Hamilton or a John Adams, whatever one of these like big historical books are, and that takes some time. And they laid the groundwork in Targeted Beirut that they are up to that standard, right? That academic standard of research. They are passing that benchmark. So I don't think I could put the demands on an author to do more than he's doing. So I mean, just look at Dan Brown. We just read Dan Brown's most recent. It was 8 years in the making. So with what Jack Carr's doing, I don't know if it's sustainable to get a Tom Reece book, get a James Reece book, get a Targeted book, get a TV show. It's like, I know he's got an empire,
plus novellas that he was talking to us about.
He wanted to do that, and he said he's got it up his sleeve. Yeah. So while we're on it, though, he does have a book coming out in 2026 that is already, we have the synopsis of it. There's a publication date in May. The fourth option, you brought this up, Tyler, and you thought it might be important to read out the description. But the important thing to know about this book is it's co-written with MP Woodward. I'm not familiar with MP Woodward, but I know he's done some Clancyverse stuff. So
he's a New York Times bestselling author.
He's a legacy author, bestselling author. And if Jack Carr and the Jack Carr machine and Empire is welcoming somebody in to put their name on a cover with him, you got to imagine that they're going to be up to par.
Yeah. You want me to read the synopsis, guys?
Yeah, go ahead.
Let's hear it.
All right. When law enforcement and the courts and the prison system fails, there's a fourth and final option. Disillusioned by the government and institutions, he dedicated his life to serving. Former Navy SEAL and CIA Grand Branch operative Chris Walker is about to end his life when he receives a call that saves it. The wife of a teammate he lost in Afghanistan has now lost her son to the opioid crisis and needs Walker's help. Thrust into a conspiracy that goes deeper than he ever imagined, Walker must go up against the system and the very Constitution he once swore an oath to support and defend in order to find justice for his friend's widow. With ambitious FBI agent Jarrett Stanton on his tail, Walker, accompanied by his loyal Belgian Malinois K9, and using his off-the-grid WV pop-up camper filled with a hidden cache of weapons, takes justice into his own hands, exposing corruption and issuing a long-forgotten brand of lethal outlaw justice. In the tradition of the great Stranger Comes to Town westerns of the past comes a modern interpretation of the mysterious vigilante gunslinger legend from the hottest author on the thriller scene today. That's a quote from the Real Book Spy. Get ready for a new kind of hero. Justice is coming. Oh, it sounds interesting, guys.
A vigilante seal. Wow. Never read a story about one of those.
Yeah.
Terminalist?
Totally different setting, though, right? Like,
This is opioid crisis that was, secret government testing.
Yeah. We'll see. I'm curious. I think it's interesting that it comes out in May and we haven't really officially heard anything. Just me and some other nerds that search its stuff on Amazon a lot found this. So
it's like you have a email to what is the I have it for like different scientific articles where I have Google like send me once a week everything that gets published with certain keywords.
Just like a newsletter.
Well, that's the group chat for us, the ThrillerBot group chat. I feel like it's Adam. He's always like scouring Amazon's website, and sometimes it's you don't even have like a cover. It's just like a question mark with an empty outline of a book. And they may not even have the description, but he'll find an Amazon page created, usually the UK version, and he'll shoot that out to us and be like, look, they're announcing a book. I'm like, is that an announcement? Like, I can't wait till Jack actually posts about this, starts talking about it.
Yeah, so this has a cover, guys.
Yeah, it does have a cover
And
now,
the covers,
which is interesting.
Yeah.
Super interesting. I think it looks cool. It's your typical font and everything that we're used to with
Looks
his
like a Jack Carr
novels.
book. Yeah.
Yeah, it does look like a Jack Carr book for sure. But what was interesting I was going to bring up is this was posted on Amazon during the Cry Havoc book tour, which I think was the week before and through the week of release of the novel, so October. And I have a really good friend that's a listener, and we became friends because of this show, basically. And he lives in another state, so he's a long distance buddy, but he went to the Indianapolis stop on the book tour, and somebody at that event is the one that brought this up, because all that was on there was a synopsis, no cover or anything at the time. And Jack basically said, well, I can't really talk about that. Next question, please. So that's how that went at the time. But yeah, nothing official from Simon & Schuster or anything like that, except for this synopsis, which is interesting. So
question for you guys.
Well, I read that from the Simon & Schuster website, so it's up on Simon & Schuster books.
Yeah, it's posted now for sure. Yeah, and to put a cover out there, some other series were clamoring for a cover. We would never get one this early.
Yeah,
so
interesting.
Things are in the works. Things are happening.
Yeah,
I wonder the logistics about this, because this is a trend. Actually, I feel like 2026 is going to be the year of kicking off these co-authored books. We have one with Brad Thor coming out in January. Brad Thor and friend of the pod, Ward Larson, are co-authoring a book. And there's so many others that I'm hearing jump into this. So if Brad Thor and Jack Carr are doing it, and they're like the top of the game, they're like Simon & Schuster's, golden children.
Yeah.
I feel like this is a movement, and I can't put my finger on it. I'm trying to figure out if it's a business proposal that has like prompted them to go in this direction. Like, we know your name sells, so how could we, at the same time as propping up another less well-known author, maybe you're giving them a little cred, getting the ball rolling for them a little bit, but at the same time, what you're really doing is selling 2 times the amount of books with the big name on it. So it's like, instead of one book a year with Jack Carr on it, or one book a year with Brad Thor on it, I'm torn between is it a cash
it's the James Patterson, like the book companies have been doing this for years with the big
ghostwriters.
No, ghostwriters, sure, I understand.
But
it seems like for
what Chris
thrillers.
is saying,
you look at there's so many books like every year that come out with the main thing is James Patterson, and then like in tiny print below it is like a little author, and like I don't know how much James Patterson is. I mean, maybe he's just like a beast, and like is like. But that names sell. Like if you look at this novel, you look at the. Do I have my?
What do you need?
Cold Zero.
What's Cold Zero cover?
No, I don't have it.
If you look at that, if you didn't tell me it wasn't a Scot Harvath book, I wouldn't have known. It looks like
that could screw people up, thinking they're going to pick up that character or something. And so many of these big name authors don't have other standalones, and now their name is going to be on a standalone book. I can't understand why it would happen unless it's something about business and something about numbers.
Yeah. Because
what percentage of the book is physically written by Jack, or the Brad Thor one, or any of the James Patterson ones you mentioned, or any of these? I can only imagine them as like an advisory role. Hey, bounce ideas off me. We need to ask them. I don't know. Yeah. Or is it 50-50? Is it a 50-50 split of the writing?
Yeah,
we should ask him. We should. Well, next time we get Brad on, Brad's pretty honest with us, so I feel like I feel comfortable asking him that question. I don't know how I feel about asking Jack that question, but no, I want to ask that. That's a it, and whether or not he's honest, I don't know. Hopefully, but
yeah, but yeah, what are 2 authors you guys think should work together on something?
Well, I think Brad and Jack should work together.
That'd be something, man. That'd be sick.
If we see Don Bentley come out with a second book, and then he has like a little author below it, like then we know it's like Simon & Schuster's trend. Like they're gonna start doing this.
There's two potential authors that should definitely write something. That's you 2. So I've been bothering Mike about it for about a year.
I'll talk about it. I can't write about it.
Oh, come on, you could do it.
Oh, another one.
I'd love to see like S.A. Cosby and Chris Howdy write a novel together.
Dude, it would be wild. That's like just clash of 2 different worlds, and to watch them come together would be awesome. That's a great call. That's a great pull. Another thing though is like Andrews and Wilson. it's funny because I'm not saying the two author dynamic can't work, but I think it has to be set up in a way.
There, it works great.
It works. They've naturally always done that. They got together, two veterans, Ty, that we talked to on the pod and read most of their books. And they just met at a conference, and one was like, oh, who's the other Navy guy here? Let me talk to him. And they both realized they wanted to do this together. And so the partnership was like natural. It wasn't like a pure business decision. It wasn't like a corporate call you into the office and like, however, hash out a deal or whatever and talk percentages. It was like these two dudes just wanted to do a creative project together. And the fruits of that are incredible. And now they have their own publishing house and they're like helping other authors.
Wow. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah. And one thing they came out in a newsletter just this week and said is in 2026, once a month, they're going to have a short story. And so kind of cool. They can just make up little stories, let the creative juices flow. Everything they do is about their creativity and harnessing it to do what they want to do. If they're going to self-publish a standalone, go ahead. If they're going to do one series, do it. If they have another idea for a different series, do it at the same time. It seems like they're not beholden to anybody. And that is authentic. I'm wondering if all these other partnerships that are coming about are truly that, based on the creative genius behind it, or about numbers.
They're seeing something that is making it work well, whether it could be a combination of both, of numbers and, okay, we're getting this guy a little bit of a break. And instead of him like hammering something 100% throughout the year and then him getting a month or 2 month break during like the book tour and release schedule, then he has to pick right back up and start again. Maybe it's more like 50% gas pedal throughout the year. And maybe the writer likes that. It could also be less driven by the publisher and more driven by the authors as well.
It could be. Yeah. But I guess I'm a cynic, but yeah.
But, I mean, but just to like, we're getting Choke Point, the next Scot Harvath book, in June. So to me, like, I don't know, maybe I have a more affinity for Brad, just because we've talked to him a lot more. But to me, I feel like his is more of a situation where he's had this obviously relationship with Ward and is wanting to prop him up a little bit. They found a story that they could come together and write this. I don't know. I haven't heard Jack mention, obviously he's not even like referencing this yet. So it'd be very interesting to see what he has to say about this. Why now? Why he wants to do this.
Yeah.
We don't know when the next James Reece novel is going to come out. Like, assuming we get it in October, like next year.
Something else that came up at that stop on the book tour was that this Tom Reece book took so long to research and everything, and I completely understand why. Those other books feel so authentic because he operated in the time period of which the first book kind of is supposed to take place, and he's familiar with a lot of that action and everything. And he went into this and he told us that he felt like he knew about Vietnam until he started really to dive in it, and then once he kind of jumped in the hole, he was in it. He kind of had to keep digging. So I think maybe I think at the Indianapolis stop, he had mentioned that we're not going to do another Tom one right away, which was interesting comment. So being that this new book comes out in May, I got to think this October time slot release for Cry Havoc did well since they had to push it, and he said it was because of him. Having to push it to be able to finish it. I'm curious if like we get a May release and an October release from him from now on or something. But
on that
we'll
note,
see.
Do you think the James Reece book will pick up where we left in the story, or will it be another plug somewhere else in the timeline?
I think it might be one of those novellas. And Chris, I was going to ask you about this if you had time, because I know you were on a little vacay whenever we got to interview Jack. I was curious if you caught that he had talked about some novellas and some specifics of those that we had asked him about.
Yeah, it's interesting, and I think authors, where we finished Red Sky Morning, right? You could obviously tell that it's this transitionary period, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it made sense to like take a pause and to go on and move this. So super intrigued to see where he goes next. I think there's a million different ways he can go. If we want to just jump right back on the story, sure. If we want to go, hell, I'd love to see him go back, kind of like what we saw a little bit in the show, get a little more, maybe the in-between, like fill in the gaps a little bit more there. So.
I typically think that whenever folks go back and fill the gaps, sometimes it can be bad. Like your imagination sometimes is better than what ends up coming out. But I think this is an instance where like we really want the Siberia, specifically I know me and Mike do. I'm sure Chris does too.
Savage
but
Son.
I know that's still like my favorite novel of all time. There still has yet to be anything to top that. So but yeah, I think that point specifically is a good spot to hit on for something coming up. And he actually specifically talked about that time period in that spot to us. And he talked about how he left breadcrumbs for Tom Reece. He's starting to leave some breadcrumbs for Thomas Reece. And so perhaps maybe a World War II book in the future. And, everybody wants a Rafe book. Everybody wants a Hastings book about the Rhodesian conflict. There's a boatload of stuff that he could head towards. But
on that note, and it kind of ties back to Cry Havoc. Well, one, if he does pick up with Red Sky Morning, I thought what this book, Cry Havoc, did with the POW stuff and being such a main storyline of what Tom was after, how he wanted justice. He wanted to find the guys, like that would become his mission. That ties into Red Sky Morning just great because we've been learning about the Poe Ranch and him working on uncovering these documents and tracking these POWs throughout Tom's life, not being able to complete it and getting stonewalled by traitors again, even later in life after he's fully CIA and out of the SEALs, and he's still getting leads cut off and not able to track him down. So the fact that there's a chance that James almost like wants to go into the history books and try to finish the mission of these POWs. And who knows? I mean, maybe you find some remnants of them, or you can at least close the loop, or you can get answers, right? For the families, you can correct the record. I feel like that's a side story quest that James, in the current timeline where we are at the end of Red Sky Morning, could still go on. And it would not feel like a side quest anymore. Because when it was introduced, I was like, I get these POWs in Vietnam are important to him and he wants to track it down and his father's history. But I was like, we don't really see the full picture of why that matters. Like, I get that could be an important thing. But in James Reese's life at the time, it didn't seem like the mission. And now after reading this book, I'm like, oh no, this is the mission. Like, I want that to be James's mission.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think that would be a good place to start, where he tries to finish what his dad started. He kind of got introduced to that world a good bit in Only the Dead, which I love. That book is awesome. I love that one so much.
Yep.
I think that that's a good place to start and maybe unravel some other like conspiratorial stuff and then lead into some new story based stuff. I think the POW stuff is going to be more in Tom's wheelhouse with the Cry Havoc sequel.
True. But I think this book makes Only the Dead better when we're learning about that, when we're seeing the ranch and him as a boy and he grew up there. And I just think all those things to me felt a little, I could see why we're doing it, but maybe a little out of place. And this book makes it just fall right into place. Like it just seems so natural. Like, oh, I know about this from the last few James Reese books.
Yeah. What was your buy-in? Go ahead.
I was just, do we know much about James's mother?
Not really.
No.
I think in the novel she has dementia. And so in Terminal List is the only time she's really mentioned. He goes to visit her. And that's when she tells him about the judge's quote where Gideon and they so that
drinking the water.
So she tells him that when he goes to visit her, and then later on, I think in Savage Son, he returns to the United States for the first time in Savage Son, and his things, or his dad and his mother's things, were sent to Katie because she was labeled as next of kin for some reason. And so she has boxes of his stuff. And that's where he finds, like, I think the storage locker key that gets him to the command, that gets him to the Jeep. And
was
everything.
It TV on our interview who floated the idea of the nurse, or was that something we just said in passing?
No, I felt the same way. TV talked about it a little bit, and him and I talked about that briefly. So before you and I interviewed Jack, I talked to TV on the phone briefly because he had read this and I didn't get a chance to like finish it up. So him and I BS'd for a bit on the telephone for a little bit. But
is there a chance?
I think there's a chance. I think I actually was going to ask you this. What was your buy-in on the romance between the lady he was protecting that ends up betraying him and the nurse? I actually bought into the romance with the nurse way more. They were both good. and the one serves the story way more than the other. But I think the buy-in and like, I don't know, just like grounded realism of like falling for somebody felt more genuine with the nurse.
I wouldn't call it romance. I think I fell for the fact that they had a bond, which ultimately could be a bond that results in more of a like a marriage kind of relationship than a fling. Because the Ella Dubois thing I bought in as a fling, an international fling.
Sure.
I'm dabbling with the CIA, Nick Serrano. Maybe he set up this whole thing. I still don't know if I trust him. He set up this whole thing. It was his idea to incorporate the Dubois. He was trying to turn the father, knowing he was an agent for the Soviets. So I feel like the Dubois storyline as a whole I really liked, and I actually bought their little romance. And then because of that, I bought the cell, or I bought the reveal that she was playing them. So I bought that, but I definitely bought the nurse and how she helped him recover much more on a familial, like deep connection bond that will last. And so he's even thinking about her. At one point, he's going through his mind, like, I'm you, the Dubois, all these different people I met along the way. And he specifically calls out, I wonder where she is, the nurse. So
she felt like somebody who could put him in his place, which is exactly what he needs. But I was going
I'm convinced the nurse is his mom.
I think so.
That's my headcanon right now.
We'll see. I think we're going to get a sequel to this for sure, because he wrote it to have a sequel. I think it's going to happen. We just don't. It's just not next year. But if whenever we get a sequel, let's just say we get one more, or we get a series. What are like top 3 things from each of you that you need to still see before we get to the events of the terminal list? Like, let's say we get one more. What does that book have to have in it? And like, what it can span a decent time frame. Like, do you want to see him exfil Katie's family? Do you want to see him, guarding the Poe story, with the assassin and everything?
I think I would like to see a little bit more of that develop, and you do that in the context of his transition to the CIA. Clearly, that's the T. And I do wonder the role of Serrano, because he came in so heavy as Serrano's the guy. He recruited Tom Reece. He's so heavy-handed on how he's basically, deploying Tom this early. So I feel like I want to see how that connects to Poe, and what are some of his missions, whether it's just a side story of getting out Katie's family and father. I would like to see all that, but basically just summarize that as I have to see him lean into the CIA spy side of things very heavily, because he was much more of a SEAL in this book, dabbling with the spy missions.
Yeah.
And I just want to see that 180 happen in the next one.
Chris, what do you got?
I want to see a little bit more connection with like the ultimate Russians that we get, in the James Reece novels. I want to see that build a little bit more, because I think we're getting we got a little bit of it here, but I just want to see more of that.
I think you got the inner workings of it here quite a bit. You got to see how the organization works, but go ahead.
But you brought up a great thing, like seeing how he gets Katie's family out. That's like that would be a big like fan fiction thing.
Yeah, for sure. I think one of mine is what happens to him in the CIA when he's working on this POW personal mission with Poe. He thinks Poe's on his side. What happens to him where it becomes to the point where he has to keep it such a secret that only a written password that James will eventually find can reveal the contents of the the investigation. Yeah. I think that the Russians, what they're starting to remind me of, especially in this book, and especially if you can, I'd have to go back and, like you guys said in the last pod, I'd have to read the names and see if they are either the same people, same organization. Maybe these guys are young in this book and they're old in the James novels, but something that they're starting to remind me of is Spectre from James Bond, where they're like the big head organization and they have all these bad guys and henchmen under their umbrella. And it's like the bad guy from each book is turning out to have always been working for Spectre almost.
Spectre's a great one. I was thinking Carla from Le Carré, and like Carla was always this like the mastermind, was playing you every step of the way. And so I was wondering if one of these Russians was supposed to be that, but I was like, the names don't connect. I don't remember any of these people.
Yeah. My problem is I think we need somebody like that for this franchise, but no bad guy has the personality like that is still alive.
True.
that could be like
They
the
don't survive
ringleader that can like outsmart and be always the step ahead. I feel like we're getting to the point in like this thriller verse that we kind of need something like that, but he needs to keep it grounded.
But it would almost be cheap at this point to make that up out of thin air.
I agree.
So-
Don't make
And
the
don't like retcon it. Yeah.
yeah. Don't
Yeah.
retcon it. I'm saying do it from this point forward. I think.
Yeah. I don't know how it would work this late in the game with a universe
Yeah.
established this well, but it's almost, and our scores reflected that. We definitely want to get your scores, but our bad guy scores were slightly lower than
Yeah.
our
Have
others.
either of you seen the TV show called Six? It was on History Channel years and years ago. So it only ran 2 seasons, was supposed to be 3. And so it's like a SEAL Team 6 TV show that's a drama with some action and stuff. But what I'm thinking this series is going to need, and don't retcon it, but it basically has this really intelligent American who gets radicalized. I believe he starts out, he's born in Boston, and he gets radicalized eventually, and he is being funded by ISIS, and he essentially is working for a high leader in ISIS, and he's starting to basically go in like chat rooms and video games, radicalize Americans and stuff like that. And so long story short, he kind of usurps his boss to take his position. And I think we kind of need someone like that is a bad guy with some like this character in this TV show had like a lot of personality. He wasn't likable. He was like the kind of bad guy you wanted to see get crushed, and he just always made it out by the skin of his teeth all the time. And I don't know, I feel like the bad guys in every book get whacked, and we kind of need something to trail out a little bit.
Was Nizar Katan the best bad guy in the whole James Reese universe?
Probably.
I think he's the most memorable.
I think no, he's not. He's second. I think he's definitely second. The
Who's
best
one?
bad guy is the main bad guy from Savage Son.
Savage Son
is Oliver. He's the American that defects to Russia in True Believer, and then in Savage Son, he's basically working for the Russians, and he's the guy that basically financially finds out that James Reese is in Montana, and then the Russians send the hit team after him because of him. But anyways, he's the guy that, like, you know, they have like that Russian spy assistant in there, and she's always trying to feel up on him and stuff and try and like honeypot him basically.
Who's the one that goes
Do you know
hunting?
who I'm talking about?
Who's hunting for the sister?
That's not Oliver. That's not Oliver. That's the Russian head, the head of the Russians, his son. His son owns that island.
You need one of those characters to span 2, 3,
I
4
think it's
books
Nizar
or so.
Katan.
Even if they're not,
Zarkatan's good.
even if they're not present, like that's why these Oliver guy is coming pretty close, because you said he was set up in True Believer, then has his moments in Savage Son. But at the same time, I want someone with a little more longevity and who's playing at a higher plane. You can't just be like someone who
like Chris
turned.
said,
You don't move up the
Nizar-
ranks high enough.
Nizar appears in the second book and he disappears, and I don't even know if he's mentioned, but he definitely is the main
And then In
bad
the
guy
Blood.
for In the Blood, which is
And then In the Blood
book
is
5.
the main one.
You need that. And the other thing I think slightly lacking here is the political leadership. I get Jack's critiques of it, and I agree with him on everything, but Terminalist, I think why it had another edge was it fit this trope, even though it was a unique way. He used the trope of the inept, incompetent leadership hierarchy. And sometimes we get so caught up in James Reese just going to go off and do badass James Reese stuff. It's like, well, sometimes they're made better when they have to go up against their own superiors. So like, you know, when Vic Rodriguez, we didn't know what team he was playing for, and like how maybe there was a chance he would not be the hero we needed him to be. It like added drama that you might have somebody above you stepping on you the whole way. And I just feel like we haven't had a president. We haven't had anybody high up in the military command that has lasted a few books. Like if we had a presidential administration, and part of what James Reese is going through also goes with the ebbs and flows of an administration. Like when they're lame ducks, they're going to make certain decisions. When it's re-election season, they're going to make certain decisions. And like for operators and ground branch guys, their lives to be affected by these political decisions being made in Washington. I don't know if Jack has ever really had a true inside the Beltway Washington book.
Yeah, I agree. I think we could use something like that as well. But yeah, I think both of your lists of like what you want to see out of a Tom Reece book is really good. I think everybody's kind of on the same page in this group with that topic, at least.
That could work post-Vietnam. Look at the mid to late 70s trying to figure out Carter administration or someone else who's like affecting these, like Iran, like go to 79 or something, hostage crisis. Like I feel like the next Tom Reece book could be him involved in some of those events when we were maybe hesitant in our foreign policy after having been through the quagmire that was Vietnam.
Yeah. As far as Cry Havoc goes, I don't know where I rank it. I'd say it's kind of middle of the road for me in the lineup.
What's your scorecard?
Oh shit.
Yeah, let's hear the numbers.
All right, I'm gonna go. The action's fantastic. 10. Plot 7.5. Buy-in 5. Bad guys 3. Good guys 5. Setting 5. Cover 5. Free space. I give the winner is the jungle.
Yep. Yep. What was your buy-in and bad guys? I'm just looking.
Bad guys. What's that?
I said rapid fire scorecard.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Bad guys was 3. And buy-in, I bought in. It really felt very genuine and authentic, so I gave it a 5.
You gave it 5, okay. I think I'm the only one who didn't give the 5 on buy-in.
But the buy-in isn't based on like anything that is maybe lacking. The buy-in is how good the good shit is, like the jungle, the environment, the good guys and their relationship. I really liked Quinn. I was hoping Quinn would make it. Damn it.
Quinn being lost so early was interesting because I was like, are these two, is he going to be like the main sidekick? I thought he was going to be almost like a Serrano.
I had a feeling
every step of the way.
Yeah, no, I thought he was going to get taken pretty early like he did. But my thing was I thought and it kind of is the plot point that is the driving force between his entire mission. His entire mission from now on is whenever he goes to rescue a POW, he's going to be seeing Quinn.
They took my friend. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm you too. I mean, what a great character he was.
I think he was trying to replicate in True Believer. There's a tracker that James is buddies with, and he gets shot, and that reveals his location for Freddie Strain to come find him. And I think that this felt a lot like that. Like it was a local interpreter and stuff, and they were partnering with that indigenous force.
And doesn't he give him a gift as well? The same way they traded in True Believer, he traded the knife. Here, I think
in this one, he gave him the Seiko. He gave him the watch.
Right, he gives him the watch.
Yeah.
Doesn't Amu give him a necklace?
Yeah, he gives him a tiger tooth necklace. Yeah.
Yeah.
You're correct.
So it definitely it definitely recalled to what James did with his friend on the Africa ranch for sure.
Yeah. Which is, if you read True Believer again, that portion is pretty engaging.
One of my favorites.
I buy into that story pretty good. Excuse me. So to bring that in and modify it a little bit for this book works really well.
So you definitely have the highest score, or are you tied with TV had a 46.5?
I don't want to have the highest score. It's not that good.
No, you're tied with TV. You both had a 46.5. He went a little higher on Bad Guys, where you were with us on Bad Guys, a 3.
It sounded like he thought it was all that in a bag of potato chips, and it's okay. It's good. It's good compared to almost any other thing except for the other Jack Carr books. And by no means is it the worst. I think we all agree that Devil's Hand, which is the biochemical attack one, is the worst.
Yeah.
Upon a revisit, I still think it's the worst, but it's the worst because there is no bad guys, and then 3/4 of the way through, there is one chapter where they shove 12 bad guys in one chapter, and it is very unnatural.
The way he teed up the president in that book in the preface and how 9/11 affected him, I was like, oh, this is going to be our president. Like our president for the next 5, 6, 8 books, whatever.
Yeah.
We're going to see a full 4 years with this guy. And he's
totally
gone.
bummed he killed him off. They could have killed somebody else off. Yeah. They should have killed somebody else off instead of the POTUS. But yeah, I agree. I think the setup and there's content in that book I like a lot, but the book as a whole has some flaws for sure. So. But
these books, it's a tight grouping though.
For sure. It's like I said, like even the worst book is still pretty good.
Yeah, and I think I'm going to agree with TV. I think he said when we were doing rankings and ratings, I think he said this is the most impressive book. And I might agree to pull this off with the 1968 stuff, going back in time. You have to tell an origin story for a main character by using his father. I thought you have to do an espionage tale while you're also a MacV Sog on the ground, action oriented. So I just think for the amount of things you had to do in this book, and that he did most of them really, really well, some perfectly, I think that's impressive. So wherever you rate this, it's hard to rank this one because it's so different.
For sure.
I'll
agree.
As heck.
I'll agree with that. It is impressive for sure. Something that I really like about it that we didn't touch on is there's so many. I wouldn't say so many. Several of the books have like this world-ending or countrywide threat event, and it was refreshing to get something that feels like
More
it's
grounded.
localized. It's very small based geographically. Was kind of refreshing. So we're not globetrotting. There's nothing. He doesn't step foot in the States really. And yeah, I don't know. I enjoyed the setting and how close everything was country wise and things like that. So
yeah, it's funny. We just brought up Quinn and Amu. Well, they make their way into my limerick.
Oh, why didn't we start with the limerick like every?
Did you forget to do it on our pod, Mike?
So forgot to do the limerick with TV. Actually didn't have one at the time. So by saying we're going to come back with Tyler to do another episode on Cry Havoc, it brought me some time to put together this banger. The adventures of Tom and Quinn, with Amu through thick and thin. True justice they aim, seeking traitors by name. They face down the chaos within.
That's pretty good.
Job.
That might be your best one for this series so far.
Ooh,
That's pretty
Appreciate
Okay.
that. Appreciate
That's
that.
pretty good.
Had some time for that to cook. It's
Yeah, that was pretty good.
Yeah, he's not ChatGPTing it 5 minutes before the pod, so
Yeah, I had one other topic real quick for this, and it had to do with that setting and being localized that I thought was good. I think. It was this. I'm sorry. The cast of characters seems very, very broad. Like I feel like there were a lot of characters we had to keep track of. Maybe too much. I think that may be a drawback for it is that there's too many characters.
completely.
We talked about this briefly in our text group that I finished Hail Mary. That book has a cast, even in the flashbacks, total like 10 characters.
Yep.
Super, super awesome. Actually, maybe like 8. And that is probably the best book I've read this year. It was great. But
I wonder
I think the cast is too big.
I wonder if some of the best books on our scorecard that we've rated the highest have a small number of characters, or at least a small number of villains, because sometimes a book is really good when you get the team up of all the good guys and each plays their role and you get that like team dynamic. Scot Harvath, that happens all the time. But I think bad guys, we tend to go lower on villains when there's a complicated network of people and they all don't necessarily scare you or spook you or play a central role. It's just like you make villains just because you need somebody to do something.
You need somebody to get whacked that isn't the main villain, so that there's no consequence for the story.
100%.
and probably because most of the time when they do that, we don't get as much backstory on the cast of villains as we do to getting backstory on the
big
cast of heroes, or the big bad, right? So
like Dvornikov, I thought he could have been a really like scary character, and I loved we caught him and we're finally interrogating him. We ultimately let him go, so I'm like, wait a minute. And I get the exchange for the Pueblo made sense. So sure, the political powers that be are going to do that. But I felt like he could have been that edge character that gives me an extra point or two boost on villains. But then it was like this other sidekick who was actually the scary one who gutted Quinn and then who shows up. So it like wasn't that guy. Nor was he really the main guy pulling the strings back at HQ. It was Lavrenenko. So Lavrenenko versus Dvornikov versus this other guy who's like this spook who's actually doing the brutal, nasty stuff. Roll them all into one, and it was like that would have made a crazy.
They built up a good bad guy there. And Chris, you had a good description of him being Bane, which he's pretty close to. Like he should have had either the physical strength and like nothing's taking him down until you start fucking cutting limbs off or something, but it's something maybe a little more shocking than how it ends up actually going. But yeah, it's like the one thing I'll say about, I know this isn't a comic book podcast, but that something that Bane has early on in his release into the DC comics is he is just as intelligent as Batman at the time. And the way he basically nearly kills Batman is he releases all of the villains into Gotham and Batman has to round them all up in one night. And then Bane basically gets him when he's at his like most vulnerable. He's out of gas. There's nothing left in the tank. He's been awake for like 36 hours straight, and he basically whips the shit out of him. And so we need a villain like that that's like both like brawn and brains, because
Sure.
James and Tom are always the brawn and brains, but nobody can like no
Match
single
them.
person. Yeah, no single person can match them in both categories. But
Yeah.
what's your most anticipated book of next year? Both of you.
That's a good one.
I know what mine is.
What is it? Let's hear it.
Fourth option.
The fourth option. Yeah. Okay.
I'm really excited
or
to
the
read,
book that you two come out with in 2027.
No. Can I say
right
True
now
Believer?
it's probably Cold Zero. Like, just because it's what I have, I'm planning to dive into it over the holidays. I love Ward Larson, and I'm intrigued to see what he does with Brad.
So it's funny because Ward Larson had his own book this year, came out earlier in the year, Dark Vector, and it sounds
it sounds
extremely
very
similar. It sounds so similar. Secret plane technology goes down, need to recover it, and this book seemed to have that vibe. But yeah, that's the Brad Thor co-authored one with this other guy. I don't know. I might say True Believer. Am I allowed to say it? Is that coming out this
that
year?
counts.
Or 27?
I'm gonna guess it'd be July. From the timeline that they've established with that production company and ending their filming schedule and everything, I'd say that's going to be like a July release. I actually think they're going to try and bump up that this is the 250th 4th of July. So I think that they'll probably release some special stuff related to that as well. Like a lot of veteran related stuff with the marketing would be my guess. But yeah, I'm excited for fourth option. I mean, it's in May. It's not that far away. It should be cool.
Are we getting the S.A. Cosby TV show next year, Mike, or is that just starting to be cast?
I haven't heard anything. That was actually announced.
Oh, you didn't see that?
No.
Giancarlo Esposito joined the cast.
No, I had no idea. Oh,
yeah.
Oh, he's the guy from
sounds made up.
Rogue One. What's his name? Dark Saber guy. No, not Rogue One.
Book of Mandalorian.
Pedro
He's
Pascal.
also the villain.
The villain with the dark saber.
Okay, yeah, he was in
Breaking Bad.
Yes, I was just gonna say.
Yeah.
He's the villain in Breaking Bad.
Yeah.
Yep.
Looking back, Ty, what was your favorite book you read this year?
I think Hail
Project
Mary,
Hail Mary,
probably. Yeah. I've never read anything that is instantly engaging, and I want to see what happens next nearly immediately. My biggest beef with it is that the chapters should be separated a little bit better. That's one thing I really like about these books is it feels like a movie scene every time it changes a scene in the setting. Like, say we're going from Vietnam to Russia. When it goes to Russia and those characters are talking, it's a new chapter. And it feels like a movie scene a little bit better. Whereas Hail Mary, like the one chapter, I think it took me like over an hour to get through it. And there's flashbacks and then back to current day, another flashback, stubs his toe. And then finally chapter's over. It's like, it just took a while for me to feel like I hit like a benchmark.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like when I finish a chapter in these books, I can like pause for a second. Whereas that one, I was like, oh my God, when's this chapter going to end? But it's so good. So freaking good.
I was wondering how they were going to handle a lot of the flashbacks in the movie or how are they going to handle he's just on a ship by himself.
I don't know.
Pages.
They already fucked everybody over with the trailer. So
I'm so mad.
Both of them. I will say the trailer for knowing the content, and then if you watch the trailers, I'm into watching like how they edit trailers and the songs they put in and stuff. They're both really good. But if you don't know the content and you watch it, it sucks. Yeah, it spoils it so bad.
It's like with the best part about the book. It's first contact.
I almost didn't.
Yeah.
I did not want to see Rocky until I was in the theaters. I did not want to reveal. I
think them showing his thumbs and stuff and his hands was too much in the first trailer, and then they show all of him in the
second.
And
then they show all of them in the second one.
I wasn't happy with that.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be good. You just have to remember that book takes like, I don't know, 12 to 14 hours to read, and we're getting a 2.5 hour movie. So just calm yourselves.
I'm worried about the month it's coming out in.
What month is it coming out at?
That's typically when they put they call it Dumpuary, where you have January and February where they dump these movies
Well, I mean, if they're smart, they look at the directors that are attached. Both of them are really good and reputable, has a good writer. It's from a good source material. The success of The Martian is
I know.
why
That's
that
the only thing
studio bought the IP to begin with. So they should know they don't have a turd. I mean, Martian was hugely successful mainly because of non-book readers. So
unless they're looking back after the fact, after filming and wrapping and now editing, it's like, let's
I
move
don't
this
think
to
so.
February.
No. You'd see problems and stuff like that. Like it's very hard to it's very hard to hide stuff like that in the film industry anymore. Like there's a couple of channels on YouTube I really like that almost are too revealing, especially when like actionable news is happening and things are like currently going on. And so I feel like we would have heard about some issues, but
yeah. All right. Well, a lot to look forward to. A lot of good books in 25. Hopefully we get equal amount of good books in 26. And Tyler, I let me end with an apology. Actually, I said on the TV episode, there's nobody I want to talk more about a Jack Carr book with than TV. Well, I got to say, you're tied for that first place. So I should have put you in the conversation as well. Between Ty Booer and TV, there's no two people I would rather talk more about a book with. Chris, that's for Scot Harvath and Mitch Rapp. I'd rather talk with you. But when it comes to Jack Carr, it's TV and Ty. They take the first spot. So you were equally tied. I apologize.
Yeah. No, it's all good. I think we all are casual enough with each other now that the conversations go so much smoother than they used to. So I'm happy that you guys keep inviting me on and having fun, and I keep making friends from your community. So one of them is a pretty
No Limits pod. We bring people together.
Love to hear that. That's what we're about.
One of them is his name's Justin, and I will affectionately call him a bitch, but him and I play video games with another friend of mine pretty frequently throughout the weeks. So,
dude, let him know we appreciate him tuning in. It really means everything.
I think in March we're trying to do an in-person meetup, so that's going to be fun.
Dude, good stuff. Cool. Good stuff. Good. Well, to put on your radar, there's a mystery thriller convention coming to DC, BoucherCon, September 2027. So we're trying to do a thriller pod meetup in the DC area. I think it's just after Labor Day, or is it Labor Day weekend, or first week of September at some point? But
okay, yeah, I will keep that in mind.
Yeah,
and I mean, it's not that far of a drive from me. I don't mind it. I went
September
down
1st through the 5th.
Oh, 1st through the 5th. Oh, so it's that
of 2027.
27. Yep.
All right. Well, just as long as we can go to Virtue Feed and Grain and make Chris eat. So
for sure. Yeah. Good meal. Good place down there on the waterfront. So
it's the best.
We'll have to put together some sort of like thriller novel tour, like find famous locations from the books or maybe the books we've covered. And
there's a couple right there at the waterfront where you and I went.
Sure. Well, Landini Brothers was a restaurant we walked or would have walked past if it wasn't flooded out, but that was in a Jack Carr book. I think that was.
Can we go to that the Blue Door on the canals?
Sure. Yeah. The Brad Thor, Scot Harvath Lockhouse. Yes. Good stuff. All right. Well, appreciate you coming on here. And
thanks, Tyler.
No problem, guys. Appreciate it.
We need to thank our patrons, including our Deputy Director, Sherry F. and Brad E., our special agents, Adam, Mike, Ben, Daryl, George, Matt, Dawn, and Chris. Please subscribe, rate, and review to all 3 seasons of No Limits. You can find us at thrillerpod.com or on Twitter and Instagram. And as always, just like Tyler, be Tyler.
Just quick little story time. Jack Carr and Cry Havoc actually inspired me last time I was home up in New York to sit down with my dad, because as a Vietnam vet, he's talked briefly in generalities about it, but hasn't really shared too much. And it was kind of cool as I told him about a little bit about the book. I heard way more stories than I've ever heard from him about his time in the service. So I always knew he was a radar guy, and he was on it was called DLG at the time. I don't think they have them anymore. Now they're like cruisers, destroyer leader guided missile, I think they called it. And I always knew he was the radar guy, but he never really talked about anything else. And he told me, because I mentioned the Pueblo, and he knew all about it. And he was like, oh yeah, the Pueblo, of course, right? He told me, they still have it in Korea, North Korea, and all this, but we got the guys back. And I was telling him like how suspenseful this scene was of like this spy boat, like completely quiet in the waters, but then they get boarded. He told me about this mission they did in Haiphong Harbor, so in North Vietnam. It's right outside Hanoi. And he said his ship was sent in to go complete silence, and they had to turn off all communications, could not speak, could not talk, and they had to go through the harbor and cross into certain waters. And he said the whole point was so that they could draw electronic signals, and we were tracking them pinging the ship. So like they were sent in almost as a decoy to get pinged, and then they can find installations and like all the electronics and surveillance equipment on the shore based on where the pings were coming from. And the crazy part was, he said 2 days before they were sent in, they stopped in Subic Bay in the Philippines, and they got fitted with some device. And then as soon as the mission was over, back to the Philippines, and they took this system off. It was called the sync system. So they outfitted the ship with a device to broadcast these Russian ID codes. So as the ship was going, turns out they were actually broadcasting.
I'm guessing it was the box Russian they picked
codes.
up. Yeah.
So yeah, they were outfitted with it in Subic Bay.
That's awesome.
And it was designed just to broadcast these codes, which would force the North Vietnamese to ping them back, thinking it was some sort of communication.
Yeah, I would guess that they had another ship or something to detect into the shoreline whenever that ping gets picked up, because it sends another signal, I think. I have to check with my dad because he did similar stuff in the Navy. He was on a cruiser.
So that was one of those like really cool stories that I would have never heard if it wasn't for this book.
Awesome.
So
definitely ask more questions. Yeah, that's awesome.
He told me about his buddy who he never even talked about before. He and this guy were at Monkey Mountain, which Jack brings up early on, the base in Da Nang. And he said they were sitting there, they were having a cigarette, and this Air Force officer walks by, and his friend goes, "Good morning, how you doing?" He was a Southern guy. And he said, because Navy was a lot more lax about saluting your officers and whatnot when they were there. And this Air Force guy had a stick up his butt and wrote to their officer, was like, punish these dudes. And they get called in. He's like, how can you address an officer like this? He said their commander just said, all right, I'm going to punish them with 2 months on boat. They can't leave the boat. And it happened to be that they were just leaving for a 2-month tour or whatever, and they were going to be at base or whatever. So he gave them the punishment while they were already out at sea. But I would have never gotten stories or heard things like this if it wasn't for Jack and the book. Oh, the other one was, since he was the radar guy, my dad was getting trained in Dam Neck at the Naval Tactical Data Systems training. So my dad was always a computer guy growing up. I never quite knew the extent of it, that it was the Navy training that really got him into
that's cool.
Early computer systems. Like
nice.
He was fixing computers and all this. I didn't know it was the Navy that had taught him that, but they got new radar systems. At one point, they detected something going Mach 5, totally confused by it. We're trying to run it up the flagpole. Nobody's listening. Turns out it was an SR-71 that they weren't supposed to be able to detect with this level of equipment, and they detected it. And he said the guys had to come out from the head shed and telling them the radar's broken and your data's unreliable. Forget what you've seen here. The people came and they checked it and like,
this never happened.
Yeah. And they're like, no, we know our system. Our system is working just fine and this data is legit. So you guys got to find out what the fuck that was. And it turns out later it was an SR-71 that they were not supposed to be able to detect, but they did.
That is awesome.
Yeah, so
that's my favorite plane. I don't have a model of it on my desk because it's at work on my desk. I love those. That's my favorite. I got to see one at the Air Force Center out there, or the what used to be
the Smithsonian. Yep.
Yeah. Yep. Love that. I stared at that thing for like 30 minutes.
Those came out when they were tested, but he was in from 68 to 72.
Those are so cool.
Yeah.
So I don't know how that lines up with when they were in the works.
Yeah, they're in there in that time frame. What's cool, one of my favorite stories is that last flight, that one that's in DC. I think it was in California. I can't remember if it's San Diego or LA. I think it was San Diego base. And it flew to DC. I think it made it there in like 60 minutes, I think.
Wow.
Something like that. It's pretty awesome. In January, I'm doing a bunch of doing this thing where I'm trying to basically find everybody who served in the military in my family tree, like in my bloodline. And my great grandfather's brother was in Battle of the Bulge, and so throughout January, I'm like doing more digging than I have already. I had to get some of their like date of births, their full names, stuff like that. If I could find their social security numbers, that also helps to get like a lot of their service records. Yeah. But that was one of the cooler ones that popped up that I didn't know about was Battle of the Bulge person. And then both like, I'll tell a really quick story. So World War II on my grandmother's side, her dad and he has two siblings. Those two siblings are twins. I can't remember exactly what they were in. I think one was in the Navy and one was in the Army Air Corps, and all three of them were in the Pacific, and so they're all three sending letters back home and stuff. And to my knowledge, they didn't know this was going to happen, but the Army Air Corps took an island in the Pacific to use it as an airstrip, and the Navy docked there to like get supplies and stuff, and the twins got to see each other in the Pacific,
wow.
which is super cool. That's one of my favorite stories. I'm trying to find more documentation, like if they sent letters home, be like, hey, I saw both of them had nicknames Popeye and Wimp. And so
Wow.
I want to find like letters of him being like, hey, I saw Wimp yesterday. Like, how crazy is that? Like, I'm trying to do some digging, but yeah, that's one of my favorite family war story type deals. So
would never heard or got to hear a lot of these stories again if it weren't for Jack Carr in this book.
Oh,
yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah,
from the Jack Carr interview, my mom thinks that Mike and I look like twins. So
and my beard's not quite up to par yet on that end. Right. So
we'll get it there. We'll get it there, buddy.
Dude, thanks for coming on, man.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
We'll chat over the holidays. Hope everybody has a good time though, and spend some good time with their families. All right.
You too. And congratulations again.
Yes.
Thank you. Appreciate it, guys.